Hey there, my name is Fernando, and yes, you read that right. Is it still a good time to get your real estate license here in the middle of 2025 as we head towards the end of the year? Now, for a little bit of context, I have been a realtor for the past 17 years. I was originally licensed in 2008, a few years after I bought my first house. And at that point, I'm thinking to myself, I can definitely do this. I can sell real estate. How hard is it to help a buyer buy a home or a seller list and get their home sold? Now, little I know there's so much more that goes into being a successful realtor. So I want to get into today. While maybe it might not be the best time for you to get your real estate license. Obviously, you can decide if you want to move forward or not. Now, I'm thinking you might be in one of three different positions right now. One is that you're thinking about getting a real estate license. Two, maybe you just got your real estate license and you're doing this part time. You're thinking if maybe it's a good time for you to go all in, to go full time. Or three, your license is due to be renewed within the next 6 to 12 months, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I've only sold one home, two homes, or three homes. Should I renew? Should I go on, or should I throw in the towel and call it a day? So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, reason number one why this may not be a good time for you to get real estate license or to do this full time is the current environment that we're in. The environment right now is a little bit tricky. Number one, the rates are pretty high. I mean, at least comparatively speaking, right? If you got your license in the last 15 to 20 years, rates weren't 7%, right? They were as low as 2.5%, 3% for the most part. Rarely did they get over 4%. Rarely did they ever go over 5%. I know many years ago when people would say, well, I bought my house in the 80s and it was 18%, but also prices were a lot lower back then. You know, maybe you can buy a house for $100,000 or $150,000. But today, the median home price around the United States, it's somewhere in the 400,000s. Now, if you live in a high cost of area or high cost of living area like I do, then the median home might be $1 million, $1.5 million, right? And so when those higher interest rates are really going to have a big effect. I was doing some numbers recently, and from a 3% to a 7% interest rate, you can potentially be looking to paying up to 50% more in your total payment cost. Now, the other thing is the prices. If the sellers were to adjust their prices given the high interest rates, then all of a sudden now we would have a market that would make it a little easier to do deals, do transactions. But the sellers are still being resistant to lowering their price because they're thinking to themselves, well, no, my house is worth this. The buyer can just buy my house, and then hopefully in a few years they can refinance. But that's not what we're seeing now. We're seeing homes that are sitting on the market 30, 60, 90, 120 days, and many times they're not selling. I believe a study that came out recently, I believe it was a Realtor.com article that the reference the study that was done, and about 50% of homeowners currently are delisting their house. They're taking their homes off the market, and that means if you're taking a listing, there may be a 50% chance that you don't sell that listing. If you're working with a home buyer, that buyer might not want to pay the price that the seller is paying. So number one, why it might not be a good time for you to get your real estate license is that the current environment that we're in. Number two is, and again, I don't know if this number has been updated because it's the same number I heard when I first got into the real estate industry 17 years ago in 2008. Maybe it's changed, maybe it hasn't. I want to believe it's somewhere in the same neighborhood, but there's an 87% attrition rate. That means that from the time you get your license, your real estate license for the first time, and your renewal comes up with us in 2 years or 4 years or 3 years, 87% of those licensed realtors do not renew. They just say, hey, I tried it, or I got my license and I didn't sell any homes, or I sold only a couple homes, and it's not worth it to pay all the fees and do all the education to go ahead and continue on. So the odds are you're probably not going to make it. You'll make it obviously if you have that hustle and you have that drive and you have that determination and you really love helping people and marketing yourself and prospecting, getting out there and creating a name and a brand for yourself. But for almost everyone that gets into real estate, they have this belief that it's a lot easier than it is. How hard is it to just sell a house? And that's where it becomes very difficult to find that client that is motivated, ready and willing to buy that home and to offer the price and terms that a seller will accept, and then to not back out or to not have a reason why they back out. And then if you talk about a acquiring a listing, that's even more difficult, right? Because a buyer can always change their mind and they can go back to renting. But once a seller signs a contract, they're pretty committed to selling their home. And in all likelihood, you're probably signing what's called an exclusive agreement with the seller. So they have to know that you are the right person that they're going to work with. And when you're brand new, that's very difficult to get a seller to be convinced that you are the right person for them. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen in those first, call them first 2 to 4 years that are going to challenge you. And if this isn't for you, and you realize, hey, you know what, it's not as easy as I thought, then in all likelihood, you will be one of the 87%. Now, number 3 is, yes, you do need a financial runway. There's no salary, there's no hourly wage, there's no way to get paid if you're a traditional residential realtor, other than selling homes. And then, once you get a buyer in contract, if you're working with the buyer, then anything can happen. There can be a cancellation. So many different things that can take place that will kind of prevent you from getting to the end. I watched a video recently, a young lady who was in the business, I don't know how long, 2 or 3 years, and she had mentioned that recently she had about 5 buyers that fell out of contract. And I've had a few in the past, never 5 at one time, but it does start to add up. I remember during COVID 5 years ago, I did have 3 that canceled around the same 30-day period. And that was very difficult because then you think to yourself, wow, I worked really hard to find the buyers, get the listing, get them all in contract, and then it doesn't pan out. So you do got to have some kind of financial runway. I think a lot of times this business works well if, say, for example, you're married and your partner has a stable W-2 job and they can support you for the time being, or if maybe you're already successful at a corporate career and you're able to put some money to the side. Or you have other means of making income during the time that trying to ramp up your real estate business. Maybe you drive Uber or Lyft, or you do some kind of other gig business, or maybe you have a job that's flexible with the schedule. Now, if you have a 9 to 5, many times I know people work more than 8 hours a day. They work 9-10 hours a day. It depends on what you do. That can be very difficult because you're going to need to respond to calls, emails, texts, specifically with clients, and especially when you're first starting off, you want to sound eager and hungry and be willing to do whatever it takes. So if you do have your traditional 9 to 5 W-2 job, that's going to interfere unless you're working with people that are like friends and family, or people that refer to you that are a little more understanding and flexible with your schedule. So you probably would want to have a minimum of 6 months in reserves. I'd say 12 months to be safe, because it could take you 6 months to get that first deal. But again, we don't know if it's going to close. There are other things you can do to try to make things happen a little quickly. But I'd say 6 months is the minimum that you want to have in reserve. Now, the last thing that I want to mention as far as why you maybe don't want to get your real estate license, or maybe why it's not a good time, is you need someone to hold you accountable, right? Ask yourself this question. If I were to get licensed, who is going to hold me accountable? Because if you have a traditional 9 to 5 job, say you work in an office, you have a supervisor, you have a manager, all the way up to the CEO, there's people to report to, right? You can't really slack off unless you don't care if you get let go or get fired. But in real estate, you are your own boss. And a lot of people love that part, love that aspect of it. Hey, I can go golf during the week. I can pick up my kids from school. I'm currently training for an ultra marathon. So there are days where I go out there and run, and I don't start my workday till 9, 10, or 11 a.m., depending on how long my run is. But you have to be self-accountable. And for a lot of people, that's very difficult. That's very difficult to be self-accountable. So I would say you probably want to find a brokerage where the broker will hold you accountable, or find a mentor in real estate, someone that you already know that's successful in real estate that would be willing to hold you accountable. Or if you have the means, there are coaching services out there. We can get a coach. But the bottom line is this, is if you're not a super disciplined, like top 10% disciplined person, you're going to need someone to hold you accountable. Now, there are a few, I don't know if you want to call them hacks or ways to kind of get into real estate, but not the traditional residential real estate sales way. In the next video, if you stay tuned next week, I want to cover those three careers that you can start with when you enter real estate that can help you transition into real estate, get the experience, and make it a smoother transition over to being a successful real estate agent. My name is Fernando, and I will talk to you soon.